Welcome everybody to the 1st of May, session 4 of CHCSOH013, work with people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Just let live in. So before we begin tonight, I'd like to do acknowledgement of country. Well, actually, can I put it out there? Can I ask one of you to do acknowledgement of country for me, please? Who would like to volunteer?
I can do it if you like.
Thank you.
In the spirit of reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing.
Thanks, Sam.
We pay our respect to all First Nation people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Abby. Well spoken, lovely and clear. So tonight we're looking at housing in Australia and advocacy. Advocacy is probably one of the biggest important areas of our work in the community services area around homelessness. And if you are working in that sector, advocacy covers a lot of areas of work around advocating to stop homelessness, advocating for clients, advocating for more housing from local councils or Department of Housings, looking at different options, and it's actually being quite inventive on how you do things. So we'll just look at our housekeeping as before we go on. Cameras on, mics off, please. Microphones on mute unless we're doing activities. Breaks at 7 and 8 p.m. for 10 minutes each. Use your hand emoji, please, for class participation. We have respectful relationships here, so just remember our language that we use, have respectful listening, and respect other people's opinions too, please. No smoking or vaping on screen. Just remember some of the content could have a trigger warning. So that means around you having a reaction to something that might make you feel anxious or nervous. And if that dysregulation happens, please reach out and talk to somebody, or you can call Lifeline on 131114. And I will stipulate, Lifeline's not just about emergencies. Lifeline is about, you can ring up and talk to them about anything. And remember to be kind to yourself. Do some things each week just to have a break. I actually went to the water today, went and sat near Moreton Bay and looked out at North Stradbroke Island and just went, oh, I feel normal. Got back in the car. All right, I'll go back home now. But I tell you what, like, it really is a practice. I haven't done it for 2 weeks. And then when I got there, it was just like a relief. And I thought, no, I've got to go back in. You've got to do something every week just to rest your brain, where you go and you don't think. And you're not zapping up all that energy. Right, we're going to start off tonight around a survivor's story of sleeping on the streets. This is about getting the message out around, if we're going to be advocates or working with anybody who has, you could be working in a different sector, but somebody becomes affected by homelessness or at risk of homelessness. So at risk of homelessness is quite a fragile area too, because the heightened senses of what's to come makes the anxiety and fear even worse for a lot of people. So let's just watch Brad. And as Abby pointed out, this has been a link in one of your other classes that I've sent out, but I wanted to remind you, because of what some of the activities we're going to do tonight, it's about being inventive. How inventive was Brad in keeping warm? Like, I mean, moving those tufts of grass so people wouldn't see him. And it's interesting to think this is where you can pick up on people's strengths. If you were working with Brad, what would one of the strengths you would identify, Hamish?
Resilience for sure with him after his growing up. That's amazing. The fact that he was on the street 12 months ago and looks that good is crazy. And everything he's been through. Yeah, definitely resourcefulness too, Sally, for sure. Yeah, that was what a poor guy. That's really interesting. The most interesting thing I found and was feeling unsafe when he goes to a shelter, and whether like, is there the possibility of creating types of shelters for different types of people so that someone like himself doesn't have to be scared to get a room? But I guess we only have so many resources, right?
Yes, and look, that was just one resource that they were talking about in Brisbane. And at that time,
It's a big place though.
and there are more centres up there, but it's interesting when I was working with homelessness and we were trying to book people in for the night that had come in, sleeping in their cars, and they wanted, space for a couple of days. Trying to get a space for them was quite interesting, in that it's better off if you're over this age or under this age. It's only gender based. Which makes it very awkward because there's more than two genders now, which causes
We did
another
have a lot of
problem.
that in Surrey Hills in Sydney, where I worked a lot, like as a chef. All the homeless centres are there, and there are particular ones for homosexual, and there's like the more Christian-based foundations and stuff. Big obvious problems, yeah.
But the word doesn't get out about some of them, It's like, but the main ones are just overrun with people lining up, and I've got hair sticking around it's a matter
I
of,
see it every day anyway. I believe you, yeah.
it's a matter of lining up and hoping that you're going to get in some nights. And we would start calling it around 3 or 4 in the afternoon to try and see if there was a spare bed for the night. Could they hold it for us? And that person would go there, and often they would come back, and it depends on who's on night duty there, and depends on whether they have a security guard at the centre. Security guard makes all the difference. So I had somebody who was in and out of one of those centres for around 2 months. And at different times, they told me different stories of what was happening. But where do they go?
Yeah.
When that's safe.
That'd be terrifying to be like someone of so much abuse, and then you've got old mate who's just got out of jail for beating someone to death, and you're trying to get a room, and he's next to you and intimidating you. That sucks. They have to do that, yeah. And I'm sure that's
the inequalities of society, for sure.
Yeah.
But does it raise awareness? Hamish, I hear it's hitting a point here. It's hitting something that's saying, hey, what can I do?
Well, I just feel like
I think my internet's lagging every now and then. Oh, I've lost you, Hamish. Carlson?
Yeah, I quite liked what he said around the humility of the situation as well, because he said most people are scared of their jobs and losing their home. So he even had the energy to have that thought, even though he was homeless. I just thought that was pretty powerful observation.
Yes, and as Sally said, that resourcefulness of his, it's interesting I worked with quite a few people who had been living on the streets. Some we were able to give those small two-man tents to, the sleeping bags. We partnered with Anaconda, and Anaconda helped us with many things, but still it was where were you going to put that? That was the thing that always got me. Where were you going to go to put that? And trying to find spots that the council wouldn't move you on. Look, today, Moreton Bay, sitting out there looking at the water at a big park. Here are 5 just a small camper van, just like an ordinary van, with people who had parked overnight, were using the basic taps. We were sitting there watching people washing their dishes under the dog water tap. And 3 lots of people come up and wash their dishes under there. They hung out their clothes. They pulled up the back flap. They pulled out a string, very inventive, hung their clothes off that they'd washed up, then sat there in their deck chair. They were there for about 2 or 3 hours. Things dried. Off they went. But the 5 vans were there. The police came round and actually stopped and talked to some person and asked how long were they going to be staying there, because you can't stay overnight. And they said, we're just touring, you know. But it was interesting. They were, you know, people talk about how they get moved on, but where do they go? Hamish?
Yeah, I've seen the same problem out in the bush near Maruya, where a lot of my partner's family live. So even next door neighbor has like 20 trailers on his property because there is just not enough housing, and so many people's houses burnt down. But then more to the point, actually, in that area, and apparently it's a super common thing going on in the South Coast and the country, talking to the family, there's just not enough houses. So many people are living in like trailers on other people's friends' properties and in those like kind of FIFO kind of worker hotels just to get by. And like, I find that wrong in a country with 26 million people, like, and that much space. That seems very bad. And it's all to do with class. And I don't like that about it. It seems like, why is a house in Maruya, which is 4 hours drive away, $1.2 million? That does not make sense to me. You know, it's not next to the beach, and then the inland bush houses where it's actually dangerous to live are still $1 million, you know? And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, there's a serious problem with property price as well, like, which is like perpetuating this problem for sure.
It is. And Sally was just asking about people that can take charity where can donate camping stuff. Actually, Sally, you can actually have a look at homelessness services in the district. One's called KENG, that's Kingston East Neighbourhood Group. And they've got a homelessness service there. I'm not sure if they're giving out camping gear to people from there, but other services have. Volunteer Queensland also might be able to connect you up with services, because they actually run what they call Homelessness Connect. And the Homelessness Connect, which is now done statewide, is run twice a year, and they take over the show stadium halls in a city state. And for 2 days, people who are homeless can go in and access dental, haircut, GP, new clothes, have shoes fitted, have food, have somebody from Centrelink there to talk to, legal aid. What else is there? They had a beautician. And these services get together for 2 days. And anybody can come in and access the services for free. Oh, they have a social workers on hand as well. So Homelessness Connect is run by Volunteer Queensland. And I used to have a group of young people that did community service work from the high school. That was part of their training. And for 3 days before the event, we went and unpacked kilos and kilos of clothing, lined up all the shoes like they were going to come into a shoe store. It was about training them what they were going to be seeing on the day. The differences of people, how they're looking, how they're acting, how they're talking. And I tell you, it was one of the most humblest things I've ever been to. And they did it twice a year. They'd be Volunteer Victoria, Volunteer Queensland. But Homelessness Connect, being involved in those services, being able to gather anything for free that people, we were making up personal hygiene packs, all those sort of things. Sausage chisels, the Lions Club came and put the sausage chisels on for 2 days. The whole community came into it, but it was a whole group of services for for people who were homeless to be able to access. Because at the time, and when I was doing this, that was 2000 and we're going back now, 2016. It was at the time where people were starting to say that they couldn't get Centrelink because they didn't have a home address. You weren't able to have government support. And it was at that time that started changing around. But these Centrelink actually came out. The Department of Housing were there as well. Just amazing that all these services come together. But have a look at it, Homelessness Connect. Great way to get involved for a short time, but have a big impact. Just moving my.
I think that photo's in West End.
Sorry?
That photo with I think that's in West End.
This one?
The park, where the homeless guy was walking?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in West End.
I wouldn't be surprised, Tony.
Because looks very familiar.
Hmm.
And we do have a few.
Musgrave Park?
No, that will be on that way. This one is next to the water.
Okay.
It's about 1 kilometer from where the ferry stops. That's what I think.
Just a reminder of what's shaped the housing in Australia. And over time, historical events, new government programs, government assistance for rentals, affordable housing programs, all of these have come through very, very slowly, often come through and then phased out again. So in considering where is he? Where Brad was, go back to remind you of him. Thinking of Brad, what are some ways that you, and I'll just stretch out my screen here. That you could change how you could tackle the increasing numbers of homelessness. And we're going to look at ways to empower someone who is experiencing homelessness. I first want to show you this news report, 2023 on SBS. I'll just bring that up. Welcome. So you saw there, Homelessness Week, 2023. They have it every year. So Homelessness Connect is one of the projects that is or under the umbrella of Homelessness Week. You will find many different things in different states that are run, that you can have short-term give of your time, advocacy, short-term support, because you've got to be thinking about how you fit in helping others whilst you're still holding another job down, whilst you've still got family, whilst you're still studying. What can you go and do for one-off events to make small differences? Have a look at those events in your areas if you're interested. I'll just go back to share my screen. Right. Gotcha. Right, so we're going to do an activity. And now you've seen those two reports, one from Brad and one about the greater area of Dandenong and what's happening there. So one of the areas with the highest towns, council areas of homelessness, certainly. So with that in mind, what are ways that you could tackle the increasing homeless numbers? If you were in government, let's put ourselves in an area where to have a voice. What could you do? Then I want you to look at ways to empower someone who is experiencing homelessness. You saw from Brad his resilience, his resourcefulness. He was very, I can't even think of the word, but he was very down to earth. He was very gracious about everything. He spoke normally. He didn't lay blame. Right? So think about those things. How could you make a difference? Now, this is about your work as a case manager in an organization. Just say you're in the homelessness sector and you're working with somebody. How could you make a difference to that person when they've come in and said, I am homeless, I've been living in my car, kept getting moved on, and you don't have any houses for them to go to? I want to see what you're going to use, your language. What are you going to use with your verbal support? Small amount of resources that you can access rather quickly. So think about when we've talked about resources are usually to go together in homelessness services, and we call it emergency relief. So ER, as they usually like to call it, termed. That emergency relief is usually food packages made up, personal hygiene packages, pamphlets around where to get access, and you talking to them and getting their information. But how would you greet them coming into the service? How could you make them feel heard, validated, give them the strength to keep moving and keep doing things? So think of the phrases you will use. Then, when you've worked out those phrases, just have a quick chat about, if I was in government, what would you do? Right, so let me just press stop there, and I'm going to
recording in progress. Oh my goodness. Respect.
You're still trying to figure out that technology, Chrissy.
I'm good now. I'm good now.
Okay. Let's have a look. So, Chrissy and Sally, what did you, just give me an outline of what did you discuss? Like, what did you think that you could say or do to help somebody?
Yes, we discussed that first thing is you ensure that you make the person comfortable
Mhm.
so that you can listen to their story and work out their needs. And also show compassion. After listening to their story, you have to show compassion through your speech and let them know you understand. And show them respect as well. Maximum respect, because everyone deserves respect, and homelessness can arise not due to only financial issues. It can happen, anything can cause it. Someone can lose the home through fire or accidents, through breakups, through the loss of dependents and all that. So show them maximum respect. And we also discussed that we will offer some food, drink, and care packages that are available.
Yeah.
At the center. Yes. And depending on what the center have, we'll offer them. And also maybe something like warm clothing, if it's available at the center, we can also offer that. And also sometimes I see homeless people around, normally around the shopping centers in Shepperton here. And most of them have their pets with them. So if there is pet food or some warm clothing for the pet too, you can also offer that one as well.
I like that. That's very good. Yes, yes. Because that's one of the main issues for people who have fled their homes for the domestic violence, have taken their pet with them.
Yes.
And a lot of shelters don't take pets.
Yes.
So, but once again, in between fires, floods, a lot of people are homeless not just because of the cost of housing these days. It's so many other factors, and they've still got their life with them in the car, the animals. Yeah, good thinking. Some good resources there too, and helping to work towards their dignity. We can't change immediately what's happening for them if we haven't got housing stock. But how can we respect them as another human being and show them some, like you said, respect, but dignity? Yeah, very important. Good work. Good work. Abby, Annie, and Tony.
Your show, Abby.
I suppose I'll speak. So we spoke about initially how if we were the caseworker and the client came in, you know, saying, hello, how are we going? And they say, oh, I'm homeless. And then we had a discussion about, well, obviously they're coming in to seek homeless support because they're homeless. And then we just discussed how you can't actually make that assumption. Like they might say they're homeless, but they might be coming in for something else that's kind of got themselves there. Like I'm homeless, but I actually need food for my children. Or they have a drug problem, which has led them to that, and they're actually seeking help for that. So we discussed about not assuming what they're coming in for, and to ask them what they'd like to achieve, to consider all factors and to use a holistic approach, to be non-judgmental, yeah, as we said, and to acknowledge their strength and resilience for living on the streets as well. So far, we're just talking about those things, and that's as far as we got.
Well done, Abby.
Thanks.
I can tell you what, when you recognize their resilience of what they've been doing, their strategies to stay on the street and to be alive and still be there in front of you talking, you know, when you say, I really appreciate that you have so many strengths. What I'm hearing you say to me is that you have all these inner skills that have kept you safe for this long. And give recognition to that when you verbally say it.
Mm.
You know, not that, oh, you've been living on the streets and, you know, you must be strong because you're doing it. Tease it out more. Yeah. I hear you, you know, when you tell me that you've been living on the streets, and I think about those challenges, and you must have been putting strategies into place. Can you tell me a bit about those strategies? I would want to know, because they're going to start to what Brad did. I used grass, I used this, I went here, I went there, I did this. So here's somebody who's willing to put in the effort to do things to make their access to housing easier. So there might be things that you have to accomplish, paperwork, joining Centrelink. You've got to go and do this, got to go and put your housing application in, do this. A lot of people hear that and they go, oh, it's too hard. So when you start to ask them what their resilience is, what were their strategies to stay? Okay. Here you're saying, I want to hear your story. So it's a real crucial part. So good pick up on that. Good one.
Thank you.
Hamish and Zoe.
Did you want to speak, Zoe, or do you want me to?
You can if you like.
I don't mind.
Go.
So we just started with like kind of talking about the issues first that people might need, so or might have put them in that situation. So maybe drug or alcohol abuse might have caused it. Then some of the other services like that you would want to offer those people, access to gaining ID, since that was brought up, and also I know that's a massive problem in the US and Canada. Then offering necessities, regular food, offering regular medical attention, haircut services, trimming to feel better about the way they look, and bathing services, and offering therapy programs to those who are open to it. Not everyone is, though. The way we would want to like speak to someone if they came in would be obviously a very warm and like open approach, and more due obviously personality based, what's going to be best with that person, because not everyone wants to be talked to like super nice. Some people are going through a lot and they're pretty serious all the time. But the main points being like, how long have you been in this situation? How are you at the moment? Like, what is your current situation? What can we do to solve this long term for you? Where are you finding it hardest to control? And where are you finding that no one will help you when you are trying to find that help? And would you be open to letting us try to find you some help and give you priority in those situations? So kind of making them feel a bit more that they matter a lot more. And I really like those other points of like recognizing their resilience and perseverance. Finding shelters that accept animals is something I never even thought about, because so many people do have animals on the street, and I don't think it's only companions, but also it's kind of protection, and like offering services to those pets would be nice too. I thought that really nice points everyone else brought up. That was kind of our run through.
Good to hear you talking about working from a person-centered approach, because all those questions you ask are great questions, but it's about them.
Yeah.
you know, and what are some of the barriers? So when you was talking about, you know, what are some of the things that are stopping you or holding you back, think about those in terms of barriers. It could be alcohol and other drugs. It could be disability. It could be loss of family. It could be a broken relationship. You know, it's not just one thing. And even though people might turn to drugs and alcohol, sometimes it's the quickest soothing thing that people can latch onto when they can't grab anything else.
Yeah.
And it's not judging them for whatever they're in that situation. When you start to unpack somebody's story and they tell you how they got there, you just sit there and go, what the? How did you get to there from being a successful person, you know, but then an event happens, trauma happens. Now, often trauma is involved in many of these cases. So as you heard 2 times tonight, both stories, trauma and traumatic childhoods.
Yeah, I saw that a lot growing up. Definitely just like recognizing the difference between my household and some of my friends' household. I was like shocked the way their houses were. And it was like
Definitely.
eye opener because I grew up in a building that was sold by the government. So it was half housing commission, half flats. So yeah, I was real show of the difference of people's lifestyle in those situations for sure.
And are you in New South Wales?
Yeah, I live in Sydney.
Okay, because I know when you say housing commission, because it's not called that in other
Yeah,
states.
that's what we call it. Yeah.
Yes.
I live across the road from the hugest one, the biggest ones in Maroubra. Yeah.
Well, I used to live in Blacktown.
Yeah. Oh, that's where I go record music. That's a great place. Love it.
So Blacktown started off with home ownership from Housing Commission.
Yeah.
With fibro homes in
Very
1964.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where that Housing Commission home ownership came into, let alone Housing Commission like in areas like Mount Druitt, I Doonside,
live in a
Hill.
house that was certainly housing commission that was bought by someone who lives here.
Yeah,
sure.
The Housing Commission actually built houses for people. You bought the house off Housing Commission.
Yeah, that's what this house.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting. See, we all come from similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
Daisy, just to bring you up to date, we're just talking about homelessness. Some of the things, how we would talk to people, as a caseworker, if somebody came into a service, how would we treat them? How would we, what would our practice be with them? So we're talking about person-centered practice, building resilience, look at people's resourcefulness as well that they've used. And just before we go to the break, I wanted to show you, we were talking about Homelessness Connect. So Homelessness Connect is an activity that happens once or twice a year in each capital state. And you can go and volunteer for this. And it's usually run by a volunteering organization from that state, but you can go and volunteer. But I want to show you what it looks like around Australia. Let me just share. So this is Homelessness Connect Australia. And just bring up sorry, I'm just trying to get my panels up. Okay, so what is their mission? Improve access to services and housing, engage and increase collaborative involvement, improve systems of care. So those systems of care come from community base, from the roots of community. Leverage, then trying to get corporate people in to do support as well. and then raising money for certain areas, activities, especially around Christmas. There's all the different states there, but if you come up here, you have a look where Homelessness Connect Adelaide has their next activity.
Have they been hacked, by the way, Helen?
Sorry?
Have they been hacked? You've seen the advert now. Oz Online Casinos supporting us. It's a very strange thing to have on the left. If you click on the link Casino Online Australia, it takes you to the top 10 Australian casino sites. It's really unusual. That's an unusual entity
yeah.
to be.
Oh gosh, yes, look at that. Yeah.
And it does take you through as well. It's a really unusual thing to be sponsored by. I can only assume. Well, I think they actually certainly are sponsored by it, but that's a very unusual sponsorship model, that one. That's odd.
Oh, that'd be the gaming fund, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Online Casino Australia, top 10 Australian casino sites. Very strange.
And I don't know how to get rid of that either.
I think it's actually on the website. It's actually on their website.
Yes, I know. There you go. They're not now. But
yeah, make it bigger.
There.
We like it. Yes, make it bigger.
Good pickup.
Yeah,
so Brisbane has one. That was one of the older events, but they've had more since then. But some of the things they actually had: medical care, legal advice, accommodation. Schools were all involved. We were one of many schools. Marsden State High School was a part of Homelessness Connect, and we would take our community service workers up there to do the work. By the way, they were also working with Ronald McDonald House as well. So in saying that, each state has Homelessness Connect's activities, previous ones you can have a look at. But what I want to show you is Volunteer Queensland Homeless Connect in Brisbane. I can stretch this out now. Thank you, Carlson. So Homelessness Connect, we have the next one on the 16th of May at the showgrounds. This is what it's about. Offering vital services, activities, entertainment on one day, but it's about, as they say here, boosting self-esteem. It's about reducing barriers to access to support. That's what it's all about. Sorry, Tony, yes?
Yeah. Are you going to be there, Helen? Are you going to go to the Brisbane one?
I think I've done my time at these, Tony.
Okay,
I did
I'll be there by myself. Just because of what Carlton said, just something quickly and interesting. Salvation Army only today got hacked. They had the computer program which they had taken off, Hopefully they'll put it back up tomorrow because they were hacked. People were going to the computer program and they were being redirected to all kinds of stuff. And that only happened today. Okay, I'll go to the homeless conference by myself.
Well, get on to Volunteer Queensland here. You can see the email address there, Tony. Homelessness Connect at Volunteer Queensland. Ask, you'd like to volunteer to support the day. What can you do?
I'll actually be going with a group from the West End Community House.
So Sally's also said if she can get the day off work, she'll go with you.
Okay, excellent.
But you need to get on to Volunteer Queensland.
Yeah.
Volunteering Queensland, all right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now I just want to show you what they do. These are some of the people that actually come for the day. And you can work front of house, you can be a clothing store assistant, food assistant, doing packages up before the day even. You can be servers on the day. We actually did the prep as well as came on the day, and we were in the shoe store. So we had to set everybody down on chairs and bring the shoes to them, fit them on, you know, just like a shoe store. You know, it was great, very humbling for the young people as well to do that, you know. Liv?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I was going to add, I've had a couple of clients who were homeless, and some of the women's shelters in Canberra, I don't know if it's the same for other states, but some of them don't will allow a bed for a woman. Like say there's women refuges and men's and youth, etc. Some of the women ones, and I don't know why, I haven't really looked into it as yet, but some of them don't accept children. So
Yes.
I've had clients one client decided to stay because she was leaving a DV place. So she left and had been staying in this refuge for a while without her children. So she had to go back and collect the children when she wanted to see them. And I have another client who is incarcerated but has been granted bail, but she won't take the refuge option because they don't allow children, and she's got children.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm not sure why that is, Helen. Do you know? Because I know I understand pets, but children is like a different story out there.
It is, but it's the safety.
Okay.
Straight out safety issue. You can't tell if you've got people who are a danger to themselves or to others. You know, they're there seeking housing, but children need much more safety and care going into those environments.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then there's not enough of those safe houses for families, you know. It's all geared towards the DV families coming out, but DV families will often be, and it's quite awkward because also too when they're taking a certain one gendered person with children, that can differentiate from the different genders as well. So say the father figure is the person who has the children trying to escape somebody who has been abusing them, often finds it much more difficult again than the mother figure for the children as well. So right across the board, there's just not enough services. There's not enough space.
Yeah, I agree. I have another client who is in respite care with her son, but her son's allowed there. It's a women's type housing with a shared kitchen, but her son is disabled and has ASD level 3, so he has big tantrums, but he isn't allowed to have his NDIS support workers in the home because they're male, but he won't leave the house. So this poor mum is kind of stuck where she's struggling with a child she can't control, or he's a teenager and he smashes up the house, etc. He connects with his male support workers, but they're not allowed to come. But if she leaves, then she has no home. So that's hard as well. Like making that choice, because you need a roof over your head.
Yeah, but there are reasons because of that, because of historical abuse and you know, distrust. But for women's services especially, when they're gendered services, they're very strict about what can happen. But if it's for 18 and over, definitely no children. It's too unsafe. But then where do they go? What do they do? So this is where us as advocates have a voice, be able to say something, do something. What can the community do? Who can we lobby? Yeah, they're having enough marches against domestic violence. When are they going to start having marches around homelessness? And actually say we want our money that we pay for our taxes to go into something that's viable, that has longevity, that's making a difference. Yeah. Carlson?
Yeah, it's a weird one, and obviously that funding that was announced today. I'm just having a look at the details, but the $1 billion from the political grandstanding that's been made through Albanese, etc. And I think that, you know, the fundamentals are accommodation, a safe place to live, and the ability to earn money and work. It doesn't feel like they're getting to any form of root cause. Or you sometimes feel like the problem is just too large, and all you can do is continually band-aid it, and that's kind of what you're seeing now with in part with the spending that they're looking at. You know, giving survivors $1,500 or $3,000, as good as that would be, doesn't feel like there's any form of real. You haven't got the tradespeople to build houses, the lack of jobs. You know, the fundamental problems. It just seems, you know, quite a difficult situation at the moment to resolve.
It is, and it's very systemic. It's very systemic. It keeps going over and over, but the system is not getting fixed from the top down. The bottom up's crying for help, that the top down are only getting part of the way. There are great people in the system up top who are doing things, but they're not getting heard. Tony?
As far as domestic violence goes, in a reply to Carlton, if we say this about fixing, the first thing we've got to is change the name. It's not domestic violence. It's man's violence. Man not the problem. Let's concentrate on the problem. We've got terrorist laws. You don't even have to be a terrorist to come under the terrorist act. Yet we've got men who we know have committed crimes and they still don't come under any act. So if you want to change it, forget about gender violence, forget about domestic violence. It's pure, simple man's violence. Once we look at it that way, then it's us that have the problem. Okay? And it's us that have to look at one another and say, I don't want to be in the same boat you are. I'm proud to say I've got at least 5 people that I've told I don't want to talk to. 5 men. Because of certain things I don't agree with. So my solution is simple. I don't have a problem. I'm not going to argue. Just don't come to see me. And for the babies, I know this for a fact. Charity companies can get sued if a mother's got a baby in a shelter and something happens. The charities can get sued. So you know you can lose your license and a lot of things.
Because it's also about putting your child at risk in an area that's risky. So it's a double whammy. You're looking for somewhere to go, but you're then putting that child at another risk. So they're already at risk with you because you're homeless. So it just goes on and on. Hamish?
Yeah, I was just while Carson was talking, I just was thinking I've been speaking to my partner a lot about this because of the 26 women that got killed in Sydney this week through domestic violence, and then the
28 now.
Yeah, and then the 7 people who got killed in Bondi for absolutely no reason. That's a separate thing. But after like a long time talking about it, only thing I could think really, it has to happen super, super young. So I feel like this kind of talk and the saying that this is not an okay thing in society, regardless of what's going on in your home or whatever, I feel like education in schooling would from quite young throughout high school as well would really help that issue, because it would really drum it in. And if there were like very serious consequences for young men for doing the wrong thing in that way, I feel like it could help address the issue. I still agree there's a problem that anger is existing in the first place, but I mean, it seems to be like, from everything you hear, it's always starting real young. All this kind of like being okay with that kind of like abuse in your life, which is sad as, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's about early intervention. And you're very correct. If we can go from the bottom level, from the early age, change the dialogue. Neuroscience has proven from generation to generation, if they're taught the same dialogue, they will keep it going. If you change the dialogue, neuroscience and genetics have actually shown that that can change. We were part, and this is part of the gendered group that I work with for, and it was a male-based gendered group at that time in 2000, from 2008 to 2016, and it was around their perpetration of violence on single mothers. They were 14 to 17 years of age. Those young men now, who are now having children of their own, we still are in touch with them. We did a lot of work around that. They came from violence situations, and that's all they knew to do with their anger, with that. They were never shown another way. When they were shown another way and they practice it, and I mean, we had them for 5-year spans from grade 8 through to 12.
Yeah.
So we got to see their growth and change through puberty.
Yeah.
And this project is, no worries, Kylie, you go and rest, darling, okay? You look after yourself.
I totally agree. Like, men have a problem with violence, and like, but there are outlets to that. I do Muay Thai, like that really
But there are a
helps.
lot of men who don't do violence.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
I feel
we
like,
don't hear enough about that.
but I feel like I'm saying, my point is like, if you're so inclined that you need that, go and train and do something and be humbled and learn to be disciplined, because that's what all that stuff teaches you. Boxing, most martial arts, like I did boxing and Muay Thai, but I've never, ever had an inkling of thinking, a feeling, and the last 2 generations of my family have never hit their spouse, you know?
And trauma has a lot to do with it, all right? Trauma
The
does
guys
have
that
a
went
lot.
to the class with definitely would have grown up to be those type of dudes if they didn't have that discipline built within them from young.
Right, and that came from the parents, their upbringing, their traumatic
And
background, that generational.
And our trainers as well, they really drum it into us. Like, I don't care how your dad and mum is, when you're here, unacceptable to be like that.
Yeah,
Life. They really mentor you.
Yep. Just not enough of it happening.
I agree.
Bail access for people, but that changing the dialogue. But this is also about changing the dialogue of how we work in the community. We can be at the grassroots doing that too. Yeah. And this is where I know when you go out there and do the work, you can create change, because those young men we worked with, we see them each year. And I mean, their dialogue with their little children is so different to the way that they knew how to be spoken to. And they are great members of society now. Young fathers who are working, supporting their families, who have changed the story. They've changed the story, the history of their family. It can happen, but it needs very longevity projects, you know, as well.
I've seen that happen, but as I agree with your original point that it does start with the community, your immediate community, and like everyone has to do it, and then it's going to change. It's not a blanket rule. That shit hasn't.
Hamish, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You're a young man. I was young a long time ago.
Yeah.
You're a young man.
Yeah.
If you go out on a Saturday night with your mates, and I've done this, okay? And you know, someone whistles at the woman or makes a comment, No,
What?
80% of us
Like a rude comment, do you mean?
don't,
Yeah.
make a good comment or whistle or, nudge
I,
you and go look at that. And,
I laugh, man.
well,
I-
see,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, Misha, I think you're a good guy, but you're a kid. And I think that's where we have to start. Don't
I mean,
laugh.
like, I'm not trying to disrespect that person. I'm just trying not to engage in that because
Yeah, you can easily do that without showing no disrespect. All you've
yeah,
got to do is be yourself.
I'm
Say,
just
look,
like, yeah,
look,
you know.
no,
Yeah.
look, this is one of my favorite lines. I say the difference between you and me is you can control your mind. I can. I control my mind, and you need to do that to be a man. If you control your mind, you wouldn't be doing the stupid things you're doing. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just telling you. Control your mind. Step up.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
All right, let's leave it there. And we're on 7:30. How about we put our 2 breaks together? We'll have a good 20-minute break, and then we'll come back and then work through till the end. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's have a 20-minute break, and then we'll come back and continue. Okay. Okay. Let's get back to screen share. Oh, okay. What's happening here? Oh, I can't share my screen. Don't know what's going on. I'm just going to blaze up on